All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, uh, I just want to appreciate you taking the time to attend this webinar. So we will be discussing the roads to college. Is your child ready? With me is Oseni and Mohamed Bar, and I will be talking about getting your child ready for the digital SAT. So my name is Adeolu Kode, and I'm the lead tutor at STEM College Prep. And so let's get into this. All right, so the goal is to prepare your child to blast the new digital SAT. So prior to now, we had paper tests, and so each exam spans for like 3 hours. So I would say 3 hours, 30 minutes break inclusive, but now it's a much shorter exam and it's digital. So there are changes to the SAT test. So it's the Scholastic Aptitude Test, and the maker of this test is the College Board. They are also the makers of the PSAT as well. And the SAT is relied on by many US colleges and universities to determine academic readiness of college freshmen. So this is a very important exam, and it essentially helps the schools to determine if your child is a good fit or will be a good fit. Just considering the fact that kids attend different schools and the schools might not want to rely on just their academic transcripts. So we've had a post-COVID shift in the sense that more than 2/3 of the 2,330 bachelor degree awarding institutions in the US have shifted to test optional admissions policy. So when COVID hit, many schools realized that this might affect performance in the SAT exam, and they decided to adopt a test optional approach. So we want to see how this affects your child, or how this will affect your child. So you're asking yourself, should my child opt for test optional? So we want to look at what factors will determine that. So I would say, making that decision, you want to consider the schools your child is hoping to attend. So you want to consider the average score of accepted applicants to whatever school you're looking at. And talking about the factors that determine which school you want your child to attend, Ayo will share a whole lot of insights about that. But I think it's important for you to consider the average score of accepted applicants, because if your child's SAT score is below that average, then you might want to consider not sending in SAT scores. So, for instance, Penn State University, the average score of admitted applicants ranges between 1,150 and 1,340. So obviously, if your child's SAT score is below 1,150, you might want to consider test optional. So that's key. But like I said, you want to talk to an independent educational consultant, and such a person will share insights with you. So after my presentation, Ayo will have a whole lot to say about the decisions, about how to make such decisions. But for the exam itself, early preparation is very key. So I've had parents come to STEM prep and say, oh, I want you to help prep my child for the SAT exam. And to begin with, we have an initial assessment, and the child scores probably 900. So I know we have a long way to go. And so compare that with, say, let's compare that to us having the child enrolled with us earlier. So some kids start SAT prep from their junior year, and some even start from their sophomore year. So that kind of gives more room for preparation. So I would say early preparation matters. And it's important for you to have that at the back of your mind, that the more time you have to prepare will obviously determine the outcome. So the test-taking strategies for this exam, it's not just, the SAT exam is not really a measure of how let me say, how intelligent or how smart your child is. I've had straight A students get average scores in the SAT exam because they weren't so familiar with the structure of the exam. So the exam, the exam requires you to understand how it's structured, and there are test-taking strategies that your child should know. For instance, understanding how to go looking for the incorrect option instead of trying to find the correct option. So most of the time, the correct option in the exam will not make sense by itself. And so a good test taker knows that the goal is to try to find the incorrect option and eliminate that. And as the elimination process goes on, the student has a higher chance of picking the correct option. So there are a bunch of test-taking strategies, and essentially these strategies help your child to beat the fast-moving SAT clock and also pick the correct option. Like I said previously, most times the correct option doesn't make so much sense by itself. Being familiar with the structure of the exam and what the questions look like. Also, consistent practice enhances speed. So the exam has 4 modules. So we have 2 modules covering reading, and each module has 27 questions, and your child will have 32 minutes for each. And same for the math, 2 modules as well, but each module will have 22 questions and 35 minutes for each. In the new digital SAT, the calculator is allowed. So previously, calculator was not allowed. I strongly advise that you make a pre-visit to the exam venue so you don't run into trouble trying to find the venue, trying to find parking and all of that. The new SAT exam is multi-stage adaptive. So as you kind of go on, the difficulty level of the exam is adjusted based on your child's performance. So more difficult questions show up if your child is really doing good, and less difficult questions show up if your child is struggling, as the test goes on. So the new SAT exam, the total time is 2 hours, 14 minutes. The old one, the total time was 3 hours, and the score remains the same. So previously, total score was 1,600. It is still 1,600. 800 points are awarded to math, and 800 awarded to the reading as well. And so the score range is from 200 to 800. So no matter what, even if a student gets all the questions incorrect, the student will not get a score less than 400, because the least score possible in each section is 200. So all right, so previously okay, so sorry, let me just I want to return to a previous slide. So I talked about this, and I think it's important for me to just emphasize that Well, in my own opinion, 1,150 is a somewhat decent score. In the practice tests leading up to the SAT, if your child is having less than that, then you might want to speak to an independent educational consultant to determine if test optional is the route you want to go. So I just wanted to say that real quick. So okay, let me get back to okay, so I talked about pre-exam. So on the exam day, you want to make sure that you have your child has a mask. I mean, right now the COVID rules have been relaxed, but just want to make sure your child has a mask just in case. You want to have a water bottle, 2B lead pencil, not mechanical, and a simple graphical calculator. Although a calculator will be provided on the screen for your child to use, but it's important your child has a simple graphical calculator because the calculator on the screen does not have the graph functionality. Try to arrive 60 minutes early because the test center will want to check your child's ID and all of that. Strongly advised to dress in layers. So if it gets too hot, you can take off a jacket or something. And if the venue is too cold, then you want to wear your jacket or something. Acceptable ID. So international passports, driver's license, state ID. So in the exam, skipping questions is allowed within a module. So say for instance, you're in a module, you can skip a question, but once you're done with a module, you can't go back to that question. So you can skip within a question and it allows you keep track of the questions that you've skipped. The difficulty level is adjusted, like I said, based on performance. Excess time is non-transferable. So if, for instance, you finish a module 10 minutes before the time, you can't transfer that extra 10 minutes to the next module. I strongly advise the use of scratch paper. So using a scratch paper while solving math questions helps your child visualize whatever problem he or she is solving. So many of my students, I have realized, prefer to do mental math, and that's not really good because the brain can only take a limited amount of information per time. And so if your child is fond of mental math, he or she needs to stop doing that because it's going to increase stress levels during the exam. So as much as possible, encourage a child to use the scratch paper so that your child is able to visualize whatever problem he or she is trying to solve, and also keep track of whatever calculation he's making for a question. So the scratch paper exists for that reason. Now, this is very important. The SAT offers to send scores for free to 4 schools. Now, it's important that you do not send your scores. You do not choose or accept the offer for your scores to be sent to the schools for free. And the reason is because if you accept that offer, then these schools have whatever score your child has. And that way, if you decide to choose test optional, maybe you don't like the score, or if you realize the score is below the average for the school you're trying to attend, then it might be disadvantageous because the school already has your scores anyway. So there's no point you saying you're doing test optional because they can see the score and they know that, oh, you're just saying test optional because your child did not really have very high scores. And then also, even if you decide to submit your scores after 2 or 3 times writing the exam, the school would have seen the scores from the previous attempts. So it's best that you do not send the SAT, you do not allow the SAT to send your child's score. Your child's score should come to you, and then you can decide to send the scores to whatever school you like. It costs just $20, I think, to send the score to one school. So that way you can decide what score you want to report, based on, your child's performance. So do not send scores, do not allow the SAT to send the scores to the schools. Then the new SAT has certain features. There's a timer, so your child can see how much time he or she is spending. For pacing, I advise that your child doesn't get caught up too often, with the timer. So I would say averagely, your child might want to say, okay, I want to spend 1 minute for each question, but then every 10 minutes, your child can then look up at the clock and say, okay, have I been able to attempt 10 questions within 10 minutes? So if you start in 10 a.m., when it's 10 minutes past 10, then you can say, okay, have I been able to attempt 10 questions within 10 minutes? So that way, your child is not distracted by the clock up there. So the new SAT, new digital SAT kind of enhances elimination, question flagging, because when your child is writing the exam, he can eliminate incorrect options, and then on the screen, your child can then see which questions have been eliminated, and also you can just flag certain questions that you want to return to and stuff like that. There is a formula sheet just like the previous SAT as well. Now it's important you come with your own device. So if your child is going to need a laptop, then you would have to request like 7 weeks ahead. And that just applies to all kinds of accommodations. So not just with respect to device, but all kinds of accommodations, you've got to apply 7 weeks ahead. But you want to come with your fully charged laptop computer that's Wi-Fi enabled. So that enables your child to connect to the Wi-Fi service in the test center. So that's for the exam day. And then after the exam day, the results will be out 2 to 3 weeks after the test date. So you just want to wait for the results. And once the results are out, then you want to consult with your educational consultants. Like I said, I will be talking about everything with respect to what to do with the scores, how to determine, how to decide what schools and all of that. But it's important that you realize that the process is very it's just a whole lot to be done, and it's important that you seek advice and you try to consult so that you are able to make the right decision, especially when it comes to the issue of whether to submit your scores or not. All right. So I think that brings me to the end of. All right. After this webinar, I'm going to send out the link for you. I'm going to send out the recording, but I also want you to realize that you have a bunch of helpful resources that you can always visit. I recommend Khan Academy, as well as this AI enhanced practice service for SAT practice. So it essentially helps you keep track of progress and kind of tells you what areas to focus on and all of that. So Khan Academy also does a pretty good job, but there's this new AI enhanced practice service as well. And then also you might want to visit the College Board for more information. Okay, so thank you very much. I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. I would accept questions before I invite Ayo to speak.
Please, if you have questions, go ahead and leave them in the chat.
Okay, so if you have questions, please, you might want to put the questions in the chat, and then, okay, so let me see if there are any questions. All right, so. All right, so, okay, so for a child in the first grade, okay, for child in first grade, child in third grade, so so I would say, your child will be writing the SAT, or I would say your child should write the SAT when she gets to the 10th grade, well, 11th grade, 11th graders, but some 10th graders also choose to write that. So yeah, so 10th graders choose to write the SAT, but typically 11th graders are supposed to write the SAT. But I think I would also, Ayo.
You want me to, okay. Yeah, so yeah, you are correct, definitely. Once your child gets to high school, that's typically the time frame when they would start working on the SAT. I have known some parents who have their children start preparing for the SAT and ACT as early as the 7th or 8th grade, because you can take that test in 9th grade and be done with it and not have to worry about it later on in high school, if you have a solid score. But most times the education that your child will receive in high school is what the test is on. So they'll need a couple of years of high school to be able to master that test. Otherwise, getting a test prep earlier with a company like STEM Prep would definitely be able to help your child get ready for that exam.
Okay. So you can take the SAT test. You can take the SAT exam as many times as you want, but like I said, it's important that you do not allow the SAT report the scores for you. So just decline if your child is asked if he wants the scores reported. So just decline, and then you can report the score to whichever school you want the scores to go to, but as many times as you want.
Yeah, and if I could add, you just need to be a little bit mindful of what schools your child is applying to. There are some universities who say or who require that a student report their whole testing history. So you would want to make sure that your child is fully prepared for the exam in that case, and they're not going into the exam using the first test as a benchmark, which some students do because they don't have that information early. So just be mindful of the schools that your child is looking at to determine whether or not they need to take another test, or because they have to show that testing history.
All right, so the PSAT. So I think I'll let Ayo say a little bit about the importance of the PSAT and how the PSAT scores might affect your child's chances. Yeah.
Okay, so the PSAT or the PSAT is the preliminary SAT. It's just a exam to provide students with a benchmark of how they're doing in preparation for taking that SAT. The SAT is what you would use for college admissions or college applications, whereas PSAT is kind of an exam just to get a gauge of how your student is performing against the students in the state as well as the nation. The critical thing that I always like to stress to parents when it comes to the PSAT is when your child is an 11th grader, that exam goes from not only being somewhat of a benchmark or performance test, but now the student can now, if they do pretty well on the PSAT in 11th grade, they could be a candidate or selected as a candidate for the National Merit Scholarship, which could provide your students, if they achieve a high score on the next SAT they take, it could provide them with a scholarship from anywhere from $2,500 to a full ride, depending on the university that they are considering. So just keep that in mind. A lot of students kind of don't really study for it, and which is not the best approach, but when it comes to 11th grade, they definitely should be prepared for it.
Okay. All right, so test optional. Okay, so IEL, that's for you.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about that in my presentation.
Okay. So let's see what else we have. All right, so okay, a lot of students lose track of the algebra. Okay. All right, so I think when it comes to just making sure that your child doesn't get rusty in algebra, I would say that having a tutor certainly helps, because I mean, that way your child's going to get weekly homework assignments. And what we do at STEM Prep is essentially to make sure that we give out weekly assignments, and that reinforces whatever we teach your child, during our tutoring sessions. And then at the end of the month, we send out a monthly report. So if your child, for instance, is not doing the assignments well, you're going to know. And also on your own, you can have your child, you can just create an account on Khan Academy, and you can have your child practice questions in the algebra section. So that way you can, just log in and see the progress for yourself. But I think primarily you want to have your child signed up to you sign up with a tutoring service, such as what we have at STEM Prep, and that way we're able to make sure that your child is constantly practicing and doing his homeworks, and of course being tutored as well. So okay, so someone is asking about the ACT and how is that different from the SAT, and I think IEL might want to talk about that.
Okay. So just generally, I'll just kind of hit it high level. The ACT and the SAT, they're both accepted when it comes to college admissions. If the biggest difference with the test really is which test the student prefers to take. The other difference is that the SAT is broken out in two parts, as Ade has already gone into, the math and then reading and writing, whereas the ACT has a science section. The science section is not really like they have to do chemistry equations or anything like that on there. It's more of a data, analyzing data based on science, graphs, and things along those lines. What I can do so that you can visually see the difference, and I'll share this with Ade as he's sending out the information with the slide, is a PDF that shows the breakdown of the two tests so you can see it. Another difference is the points that are being evaluated, points that are awarded on the SAT versus the ACT. The ACT has 4 sections. It's based on 36 points total. SAT is based on 1,600 points. It has 2 parts. So we'll get that PDF over to you so that you can view that in more detail. If you're wondering what test is best for your student to take, I would recommend that you have your student do a practice test online, which was some of the resources that Adeolu has already shared. Have your student take it, see what their score looks like, and kind of go from there. I have some students who, whether the ACT or the SAT, they basically perform the same. And so it's kind of up to them what they'd like to do, but it's really up to your student's preference. All universities take both.
Do we have any more questions? Thank you, Aya.
No problem.
All right, so I will stop sharing, and I would like to welcome Oseni to have a presentation.
Thank you. Can you enable sharing for me, please?
Okay, right away. Sorry. Yeah, hold on a second. I'll try to. Never sharing. Okay. Okay, so can you try to share now?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, just let me know if you can see my slides. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about I'm going to provide 7 tips to help prepare you or your child for the college admissions process. Just a quick introduction on me. My name is Oseni. I'm a college admissions strategist. I own U.S. College Experts, which is a company that provides support in the college admissions process. So what we do is we provide college admissions coaching, application assistance. We help students develop their college list. When it comes to essays, whether it's the essays for college admissions or for scholarships, we provide support and guidance on that. We help students build their activities list and resumes, whether it's the student has already completed their activities already, or they're trying to figure out what activities they should do that will probably enhance their admissions or acceptance opportunities. We do interview prep. We help with financial aid. We'll probably start back next year, but we used to do college tours, and we have had families like, oh, I want to visit a particular school. We just don't know how to organize that. We provide trip planning, and then college readiness workshops is basically what we're doing today. And so we've had clients been accepted from a full range of schools, many of the schools that are in the area, Ivy Leagues, top tier, top 20, top 50 schools in the country. So we're really excited that when we have students get into the school that's best for them, not really going by name, but these are just a few of the names of the school our students have been accepted into. We have students who've gotten full rides. We have students who've gotten partial scholarships and what have you. But our goal at the end of the day is to make sure that a student thrives at whatever university that they attend. And so a little bit just kind of cautionary that I always try to throw this out there, because I've had situations, or I've heard of situations where someone has taken the advice from the webinar, and which is general, and then they applied it to their own situation and the outcome wasn't exactly what they wanted. So this, I'm going to say, is general advice. It doesn't supersede the information that you will receive from your financial advisor or your child's school counselor or an actual contracted independent educational consultant like myself or admissions rep. So again, general advice that you can take on and start your research, or decide to contract out the work to a consultant. So what we'll be covering today is the current college landscape, and then I'm going to provide 7 tips to help prepare your child for college admissions. So right now, I get this question all the time: is college admissions more competitive? And I could say yes, and then just kind of walk away from that. But I'd like to provide data. I'm very data driven when it comes to this process, because based on the data, you can make a decision or a determination. So when it comes to University of Maryland College Park, I'm based here in Maryland. And so most of my clients come from the DMV area, but I have clients in Texas and California and Florida and Georgia, this last application cycle, as well as Nigeria. So it just kind of depends. So but UMD is one of the schools that a lot of my clients apply to year in and year out, just because of the proximity to home or the strong programs that they have at the university. So looking at how many applications that the students are, the university is receiving, we see back in 2010, 2011 cycle, they got 26,000 applications. This 2021 cycle, or 2021, 2022 cycle, which is the students who had started their first year this past fall, they received 56,000 applications. And you can even see the difference between COVID and after COVID. And a lot of families will say, well, what happened? Test optional happened. So a lot of students who would probably say, you know what, maybe UMD is not a good fit for me, or my test score is not as strong, maybe I don't have a chance of going there. They, when COVID came and that test optional policy hit, they went ahead and applied to the school. And then also, the school is becoming more well-known because of the funding that they're receiving and some of their affiliations with some Fortune 500 companies. So really, who's getting into UMD with that data I'm showing you? So this is for the class of 2026. So these are the students who started last fall. So the average GPA these students had, and this is average, so some students might have had higher, some students might have had lower, is 4.47. The acceptance rates is 34.3. It's dropped significantly from when I started working with students 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was probably about 55, maybe even 60%. So it's nearly in half at this point, or over half now. And so SAT, middle range, and Ade has kind of touched on it. So this is 1380 to 1520 is the middle or the belt of what students are scoring on this exam. So if your student falls outside of this score, should they submit their test score? We can talk a little bit more about that when we get to test optional. ACT, middle 50% again, 31 to 34 out of 36. So you can tell when you look at the max score for the exam, you can tell that the students who are getting into these schools are, as well as GPA, they are students who are highly qualified, highly academic, are doing well on the exams. This is not, these aren't students who just kind of wake up and say, I'm going to apply to UMD or any university on their list. These are students who have used their time in high school to strengthen their applications, whether academically or extracurricular wise. And you might say, that's UMD, what about other schools? So NYU is another school that a lot of my students tend to apply to. NYU, this past cycle had 5,700 spots available, but they received over 120,000 applications this last cycle. This cycle would be class of 2023. The students who are graduating, high school seniors or high school 12th graders, are graduating in May and June of this year. So you can see all the way from 2010, they had 37,000 students submitted application. In 2021, 2022, 105. So it's getting more and more competitive because more and more students are submitting their applications. With them, average GPA is 3.7. I wasn't able to determine if this was weighted or unweighted, but it's 3.7. Acceptance rate with them is 4.75 because we can see they only have so many spots and they get tons of applications. Middle 50% for SATs, 1350 to 1530, and then ACT 31 to 35. So this is not a school where a student that has a lower SAT score or ACT score, not saying they wouldn't be able to get in, but they might not appear as, what's the word I'm looking for? They might not appear as a student who might have as high of a profile as some of the students who are already applying to the school. Not to say they can't apply, but what else can we do in the application to boost their profile? So 7 tips to help prepare you for the college admissions process. The tip number 1 is to take advantage of the present This is critical when it comes to this process. The college admissions process starts now. So if you have an 8th grader, if you have a 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, wherever you find yourself in this process, you need to stop, take an assessment of where your child is, or if you're a student on the line, take an assessment of where you are right now, and take a look at the type of schools that you're trying to apply to see whether or not you are in line to be considered as a candidate for the school based on their incoming freshman profile, which is what I just shared with you for NYU as well as UMD. So transcript submissions. So a lot of students, or a lot of families, I should say, tend to think that 12th grade is when college admissions start, which is not the case at all. It starts from 9th grade. Even for some students who are in 8th grade, who are taking maybe algebra or maybe a foreign language in middle school, where it's going to count or be it's going to count on their high school transcript, it might start as early as 8th grade for them. And so I always like to show this to parents so that they can understand that, no, the college admissions process starts in 9th grade. It does not start in 12th grade, because what happens is these are all the report cards that they see. They see first and second and third quarter and fourth quarter for 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. But when your child gets to 12th grade, and let's say you have a child that maybe had struggled academically, maybe earlier on in high school, they finally got their stride in the 11th grade, and they're like, okay, I'm going to use 12th grade to kind of get my GPA up. Chances are, depending on what type of application or when their application deadline is, they may not be able to get that first or second quarter grades on that transcript. So in 12th grade, if they're applying early, and when I say early, I'm talking about deadlines as early as some schools, October 15th, November 1st, November 15th, December 1st, December 15th tend to be the early applications. So they won't have their first quarter grades yet if they're applying to school that has a deadline at November 5th, November 1st or earlier. If they're applying regular, that's January. So they will have their first quarter and possibly second quarter grades at that point. When it comes to second quarter grades for students who are applying early, this school might reach out to your child's school counselor and say, you know what, we're kind of on the fence with this student. Can you send us their second quarter grade so we can make a decision? That I've seen happen in the past as well. Some universities do that, just so that they have extra data points. And so again, time is money, and we want to make sure that your child knows that every day that they're in high school, they're trying to meet up with a certain goal, which is applying to college and being admitted into college. So for rising seniors, so these are current 11th graders, they have 165 days before their applications are due, November 1st, and I'm using the November 1st deadline. For 11th graders, 531, or rising 11th graders, current 10th graders, they have 531 days. Rising 10th graders, current 9th graders, 896 days. And then for 9th graders or current 8th graders, 1,261 days. So I just like to put those numbers in front of you so that it's just kind of a visual, because sometimes we just feel like I have time, but when you see that countdown going for you, it kind of makes you sit up a little bit more and take things a little bit more seriously. Research, tip number 2 is to research possible careers and majors. This is very critical to this process. One being, we're not just going to college to hang out for 4 years. The ultimate goal to go to college or university is to eventually land a job. So we want to make sure that the students that we are working with, or your children, are selecting majors that, number one, appeal or are complementary to their strengths, and then also are jobs that the student at the end of the day will be able, majors that students sign up for are going to lead to jobs that will provide them that stability, that they don't have to come back home and live in your basement or sit on your couch or continue to be on your payroll. at the end of the day. So what we recommend that students do is complete a career and personality assessment. I have students who come to me and say, hey, you know, Mrs. Oseni, I want to do X career, and I'll ask them why. And honestly, I would say 95% of the time, I have a student who can't explain why they want to do a certain career. And it's not bad, but it's a concern for me, because it's almost like the student has been programmed from birth to say, okay, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an engineer, but they don't understand the why behind it. And the biggest thing too is, if a student says they want to do a particular major or go into a certain career, when it comes to the college applications, a lot of universities will ask them, why do you want to do this major? So if they can't articulate that to me as an 11th grader or a 10th grader, that's a level of concern for me. And we need to figure out, is this what the student really wants and they just need more exposure, or they're just saying it to get it off your back, or they want to impress whoever they're talking to. Okay, so some career assessments that I recommend is 16 personalities. Again, you will get a copy of these slides. You can take a screenshot if you'd like. ONET Interest Profile is a really good website that I recommend that you take a look at. Why I like this website, it looks a little bit old, but the reason why I like it is because it's connected to one of the government websites. It's the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So when a student goes through the assessment on their website, they'll say, okay, these are the careers that, this is your skills, your strengths, and these are jobs that connect to that. And then from there, they can see the jobs, they can see the career, the job projection, what it's going to be in the next 10 years. They can see what majors that student needs to do to be able to get those jobs. So it's very straightforward. College Board Big Future Career Quiz is another great website. And then Adeolu has already mentioned the Myers-Briggs Personality Assessment. In years past, you would have to work with a consultant to take the Myers-Briggs, but I think now you're able to take it online on your own. Other websites I definitely recommend that your child does as they're beginning their career and major search is a occupational growth handbook, which is part of the Bureau of Labor and Statistics website that's on the web. Again, you can type in a particular major, type in a career, and see what the projections are there. College Board is the organization that administers the SAT. So they have a whole module on college readiness. And so they have an Explore Careers section, they have an Explore Major section. And then if your child goes to a high school that has Naviance, that is a great platform to look into majors as well as different universities as well. Okay. And the other tip I would say under still researching possible careers and majors is have your child talk to a professional or a student in the field. When I have students that work with me, depending on how long they work with me, I have them go through this whole process, researching their major, talking to professionals in the field. And you might say, well, I don't know anyone. You know what? The biggest or the greatest tool is the internet. I've reached out or worked with students to reach out to professionals on LinkedIn if they don't have someone in their immediate network, or I don't have someone in my immediate network for them to talk to about a particular major or field. They have cousins and maybe older siblings who can connect them to students at a university possibly. And again, you can use LinkedIn to connect with students who are currently at the university studying a particular major that your child is interested in. So it's good to understand, so that your child gets a view of what it takes to go through the major, as well as what is it to work in the profession. And one question I always tell my students to ask these two individuals, if you could go back and change something, or if you could go back and speak to your younger self about this field, what would you tell them? What would you tell your younger self? And because your child is in a position where they can learn from someone else's mistakes, or someone else's what someone else has learned over a course of time, this will definitely, it could be a cost savings for you as your student explores the field. Tip number 3 there are different paths to career success. So I'll use myself as an example. I've gone on to do my MBA, but where did I start? I started out at community college, which a lot of families kind of turn their nose up to. But if someone said, okay, what school that you went to, and I went to about 4 different schools, what school that you went to would you give money as an alumni? It would be my community college. My community college provided me the foundation, the most support that I needed as a student coming out of high school. And even the support that I received was even life-changing, where I had a mentor. It was a lot of things they did for me, or resources that were available to me that if I had gone to a university, I probably wouldn't have looked out for, or just assumed that it would be, going to a university, I don't need those things. So students, every child is different, and you have to really look at your child. And sometimes it's a tough conversation that I have with some parents, like, let's really be honest about your child and their strengths and what their interests are. I'll use my family for example. I mean, as far as my mom's kids are concerned, I have the most degrees. I have a brother who graduated high school, started college, didn't finish, but he is working in a career right now that puts him in 6 figures. And he has maybe 1 year of college under his belt. So trade schools and career specific training programs might be the route for some children. Going to community college and maybe gaining an AS degree and going straight into the field might be the best shot for some students, or maybe doing the community college to university might be the best thing for another student, or just going straight into the university. And then also there's military options. Success looks different for everyone, so we need to look at your child, look at their strengths, look at what they need, and what will keep them engaged the longest, so that they can go into the career that would work best for them. So again, that they're off your couch and they're independent. Tip number 4 is to focus on your grades. This is, I think as I looked through the panel list, I think most of us are either, Africans or African descent. Grades, when it comes to us, is very important. And let me tell you something, it's not only about getting good grades, but we want to make sure that your child, specifically in middle school and high school, that they're being challenged academically and taking those academically rigorous courses. So that might look like an international baccalaureate diploma program. That might look like taking advanced placement or AP. That might look like honors. So looking at your child's strength, and also looking at what the school offers, because a lot of students, what happens is around, I want to say February, March, the school counselor comes to their classroom, or they have a general session in the auditorium where the school counseling office will say, now it's time to sign up for your next set of classes for your next school year. And your child is, consulting with their friends and picking randomly classes that are easy, that they might be interested in, or classes that they have extra breaks or things along those lines. They're not thinking about long run sometimes. And that is leaving that to your child is a big mistake, because number one, as you're working with children or working with high school students, I want to know, number one, what your school has available. And I also want to know what career or what major you might be interested in, because that will determine what classes I will recommend that you take. So if I have a student that's an engineering major and they have the choice between taking statistics and maybe pre-calc or calculus class, I'm going to push them towards the pre-calc and calculus class, because there's some universities that will say, if you have not taken pre-calc or calculus, you are automatically not going to be considered for our engineering program. So, or even physics, if they have the option to take between taking AP Bio or taking a physics class, the same thing, I'm pushing to physics, because that is a same requirement for some universities. So you want to understand what the university is looking for, what your child's school offers, and then work with them to select the proper classes that will set them up for career admission success. And if you're not sure how to do that, or not familiar, or don't feel comfortable, then you can reach out to someone like myself. Tip number 5, map out your extracurricular activities. Again, because we're so focused academically, some of the students that I end up working with, their extracurriculars are a little bit lacking. And because your child is in, does, I would say, maybe an extracurricular activity, maybe your church has we feed the homeless once a year, and then your child thinks, oh, I've done something. No, schools are looking for students to be specialists in their areas. And so we want to make sure that your child is going into selecting extracurricular activities that either one allows them to explore their major a little bit more, that complements the strength that they have or interest that they have, or allows them to get more exposure into a major. So many families just think that when I say extracurriculars is just talking about sports, but it's not limited to just sports. We have clubs, we have hobbies, even having a job, and doing internship and volunteering with some guidance are considered extracurricular activities. You might have a child that plays an instrument, that's an extracurricular activities. There's so many things that your child could be doing outside the classroom. The universities want to know what your child is doing outside of their academics in their spare time. So you want to make sure that if your child is doing these things, that you're making note. If they're winning awards, you're making note of that, so that when it gets to a time when they're doing their college applications, that we have those activities already lined out and know your child's accomplishments in those areas. And then I think I've already mentioned everything else on this slide. Other thing, you want to work towards taking on leadership roles in these organizations if you can. I have students who, maybe they're in their school orchestra. So maybe within the orchestra, there's no like president or vice president, but within the section for their instrument, they push themselves or allow themselves to be seen as a leader, maybe because they played the instrument longer than others and they're teaching others, or they're a resource to the teacher in helping those students in that section. The other thing is, leadership roles don't always have to be formal, so it doesn't need to be, something with an actual title, but it's something that they stepped into and did because they saw that there was a gap or a need in that particular organization or club. And then again, always take note of your contributions. So a lot of times we see, I have a student that's so busy, but then the busyness almost is not helping them, especially when they're trying to apply to some of the highly competitive universities in the country. So I'm going to say the Ivy Leagues, or some of the top liberal arts colleges and universities in the country, or top public state universities in the country. Well, how does your child stand out in the process outside? Because everyone, if your child is applying to Harvard, everyone's going to have a 1600, even if your child has it. Everyone's going to be taking APs, even if your child is doing it. So it's going to be your extracurricular activities that's going to allow your child to stand out and have a story to tell in the application. So tier 1, so there's 4 tiers where I kind of categorize students in their extracurricular. So the national or international recognition is tier 1. So this is like a student winning like maybe a international speech or debate competition, or they've published and done research and had it published. They're holding a national position in an organization. That's where a student is going to stand, because not a lot of students get to that level. That's tier 2 is more state recognition or holding a high level of leadership. So this would be maybe a national president of a club, or winning a state or state level competition. Tier 3 is going to be local or school level or recognition. So this might be that they're holding a position on that level. So this is like their presidents or their sergeant of arms of the club in their high school, or they're placing at a city or county level. And then tier 4 is going to be common or general membership, common activities, general membership. So if your child is gunning for a more competitive school, I would say that they need to have, they would need to have at least 1 or 2 activities in this tier 1 or 2. Need to push towards that, maybe even tier 3, but the majority of the activities would kind of be here. And as you can see, tier 3, this is where tier 4, this is where the majority of students are going to fall. So you want to this is going to be another way strategically that your child can stand out. Tip number 6 is take test prep seriously, which we've kind of already talked about with the questions that you've all asked. We recommend that students complete their SAT or ACT by the end of their 11th grade year. That is my suggestion, and it's because of what I've seen over the years of me doing what I do. I find that students that wait till 12th grade or maybe fall of 12th grade to do their SAT, even for the first time, or even doing another test during that time, their schedule is so heavy. So beginning of senior year, 12th grade year, they're prepping for the SAT, they're doing their college applications, they play fall sports, they're busy with that, they're going to school, they're cleaning the house, they're hanging out. So many things are competing for their attention. So if we can get the SAT or ACT off your child's to-do list earlier, where they have a solid score, the better for them, so that they can focus on building their extracurricular activities list or any other activity or thing they have to do during their senior year. And again, I've had students who were done with their SATs come 10th grade, end of 10th grade year. So it's possible. It's just a matter of planning. And then the last thing I would say about this is test optional should be your child's last option, not the default. I have a lot of students that are like super excited with the test optional, and they're like, oh, great, I don't have to study for my SAT or ACT. And they just completely just blow that out of the water. They don't want to do it. Now, what happens is your child has now put themselves in a situation where they don't have that extra data point that the university admissions office can use to evaluate them in their profile. So what happens if a student has 2 students, there's 1 spot left, I'll just use this as a visual. We have two students, 1 spot left, both have the same GPA, both have the same extracurricular activities, both are going into the same major, but one submits an SAT score that's pretty strong. To me, my inclination would be that they'll go with the student that submitted the SAT. Also, what I'm finding is, as I'm, again, going back to the data, I don't have anything in front of me that I can share with you, but if you Google common data set with any university that your child is interested in, if you do Google that, it'll come up with this document that goes into significant detail of what the profile is for the incoming first-year students. So say how many students have taken the SAT, how many students have, well, let me not say taken, how many students have submitted the SAT or ACT, what the GPAs are like, and things along those lines. And what I find is that the greater majority now, because we're outside of COVID now, test centers are open, students have the access to take testing. Even if a school is test optional and they're advertising themselves as test optional, I'm seeing that students who are being accepted into the university at a higher rate, who are students who have taken SAT or ACTs are being admitted into the university at a higher rate than students who don't. So if your child does not submit a test score, they could be at a disadvantage. Now, it could be a situation that your child is just not a strong test taker. They have worked with Adeolu and STEM prep, and their score just is not strong enough. It actually would hurt their application to submit it. Then we can have that conversation there. We can look at the different schools, see what if we don't submit test score, what might be the chances. We can also talk to the admissions rep, get an idea of what they're looking for, and so we can get a better understanding of whether or not to submit even what your child has. But most times, generally, what I would say is if the test score looks like it's going to hurt your child's application, then you might want to withhold it from the university. So just kind of timelines. We already talked about the test going digital. So what will happen is, this is kind of where we are right now. So international students who are outside the US are now taking the SAT on with devices or online now in a testing center. What will happen eventually is in the fall this year, PSAT will be digital. Spring next year, So this would be, this would be really critical for a student that might be taking maybe 11th grader or 10th grader that's trying to get their SATs out of the way. Their SATs will be completely digital come next spring. So next January, I can't remember, yeah, or March, that's when the next test date, spring 2024, the first test date is in March. So what I would also stress to you is that if you have maybe a current 10th grader or current 11th grader and they're going to be going through this process, I would recommend that you sign them up for SAT prep or SAT prep if they plan to take the SAT now, and then also make sure that they take the paper test if it's still available for them as soon as possible, or register for them to take the test as soon as possible. Because what I speculate might happen is that everyone is unsure about this digital SAT, and that test date will fill up fast, and you might have to travel further out to take your child to a testing center so that they can take the paper test, because come 2024, we're all digital, no matter where you are in the world. Test optional, test flexible. There is a list of universities that are test optional or test flexible. Test flexible means that you don't necessarily have to submit a test score, an SAT or ACT. You can submit another test that still showcase your a standardized test score and your strength in that. So it could be an AP exam, it could be an IB exam, it could be any type of standardized test, and the schools will normally list what they will accept. And so if you're interested in knowing about what schools provide or have a test optional or test flexible policy, I would encourage you to visit fairtest.org to get that list of schools. But I want to put out a piece of caution with it, is that as you're thinking about your child and what schools you want them to apply to, number one, you want to make sure to understand whether the school is test optional or test flexible, because not all universities are. Some of them are rolling back their policies. So Georgetown, I think, never went test optional. MIT is bringing back the testing requirement. So make sure you're checking those things. There's some states that require students to take their public universities to require test scores. So Florida is one of those states. Georgia is one of those states as well. But regardless of that, I really want you to look at the admissions website, understand what the scholarship opportunities are at the school, and make sure that there are no scholarship opportunities tied to an SAT or ACT score. So because if they are, then your child could be leaving money on the table or just kind of disqualifying themselves because they didn't want to take a test. So just make sure you take a look at that. Tip number 7, take time to write strong essays. This is critical when it comes to the process of the application. Main reason being is that this is the only part of the application that has your child's voice. Every other piece of information is data or information shared from someone else. So it's a recommendation letter from a teacher that knows your student. Their transcript is data. Their SAT score and ACT scores are data. Their extracurricular activities is just a list of information. But the essay will show the school not only how your child writes, but how they think, how they reflect, how they analyze an experience. So this is not something that should be done at the last minute. Sometimes I work with students, and it takes them some time to get this done. It does take some time to get it done, especially if a student is not a strong writer. So you don't want to wait to the last minute. My last tip is to make sure that you apply for scholarships and grants. Scholarships and grants comes from the federal or state government, college or universities. Your employer, parents might offer scholarships to dependents, and then companies outside in the community. So it could be professional or non-professional organizations, private, public. So it could be Nike. It could be, if you're like, I'm a project manager by training. I'm part of the Project Management Institute. They have scholarships for students that aren't maybe studying project management or in local chapters might just have scholarship for high school students. So definitely take a look and check that out. I'm going to just share really quickly some places where you can, or some scholarships that you might find interesting. So sometimes, because of the nature of the population I work with, I have some students who are undocumented or DACA or qualified under DACA. And so these are some scholarships that I would recommend that you take a look at: the Dream.us, Quest Bridge, the Golden Door Scholar, and then Maryland State Financial Aid has scholarship for students who fall under that. Students from lower income, so they already know that it's going to be tough for you to pay for school. So they have scholarships out there. Again, with these, it's GATE scholarships. Quest Bridge is another one. You're eligible for FAFSA, so you don't want to leave money on the, eligible to complete the FAFSA, you don't want to leave money on the table. And again, Maryland State Financial Aid, I've had students, because of the combination of what the university is offering, because they applied for a particular scholarship, or they were eligible because of their SAT scores or ACT scores, in combination with what they got from the completing the FAFSA, they got a grant, and then they got a grant from the state of Maryland. And going to University of Maryland out of pocket is about $33,000 a year. Parents only have to pay $2,000 out of pocket because of the scholarships they receive from the state and all these different outlets. So to recap on everything, take advantage of the present, research possible careers and majors, understand that there are different career paths and success looks different for every student. Focus on your grades, map out your curriculars, and take test prep seriously and apply for grants and scholarships. If you have a senior, I don't know if we have any 12th graders in the audience here, or parents with 12th graders or rising 12th graders who are current, or students current in 11th grade, we have a virtual workshop to help students with the college application. So this is going to be in a group setting. You're the first to receive this information. We're going to open it up next week, but I said, let me go ahead and share it with you. If you decide to sign up, we'll provide you a $100 discount. So it'd be $11.95 instead of the normal $12.95. If you're interested in registering, it's bit.ly/USC app workshop. Again, you'll get a copy of the presentation. If from this presentation, you're like, you know what, I feel like I'm behind, I have questions, I provide a free 20-minute strategy session with anyone that sets one up, and we can just talk about your child, where they are, and we can provide you resources. There's no obligation. Feel free to sign up for that. bit.ly/USC intro is how you would do that. We'll put that information in. I'll put the information in the chat after my presentation. You can reach out to me and my team by email, as well as by phone call or text or WhatsApp. We'll get back to you immediately. So that's the end of my presentation. So I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Aya. That was awesome. Okay, I would like to welcome Mohamed to have his presentation. Go ahead, Mohamed.
Hey, how you doing? Are you taking any questions or no?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh no, questions, please. I'm sorry. Please, questions. Thank you, Mohamed. Okay.
No problem.
Aya, thank you once again. So it's time to take questions based off Aya's presentation.
So I see question says, can we submit ACT and an SAT? If you feel like the ACT and SAT score do showcase your child's strength on the test, you can submit both. It's not one or the other. Some students submit only SAT, some students submit only ACT, some submit both. It's just kind of up to you what your preference is. Next question says, does the background of a school rank level the student went to take play as an indicator of being selected, or is it only the SAT score that is a paramount factor? So when an admissions officer reviews a student's application, they're reviewing them in the context of their high school. So they're looking at what classes were available to them. They are looking at what your child actually did, and then also a combination of their extracurricular activities, and then also their SAT scores. It's not just the SAT. What they say is that they do a holistic review of a student and their profile. And then now they take that in comparison to maybe all the other students who are applying. So they might do, some schools do it by region, some students do it by a region. When I say some universities, the admissions officer has a geographic area that they cover, and they understand the high schools in that area. That's their responsibility. So they might take them in the context of that, or they might take them in the context of all the students who apply to the university. Can you please give some tips for getting admissions and scholarships for Harvard, MIT, Stanford, etc.? So I would definitely recommend, because for the sake of time, I would definitely recommend that you reach out to us and set up some time, because I want to understand your child and their profile a little bit more, so I can be a bit more specific with that. But I would definitely say, do academically, make sure that your child is applying themselves and taking academically rigorous courses and really focusing on that SAT and extracurricular activities. How soon can a student start applying for scholarships, especially students graduating next year? Now is the time. Do not play with these scholarships. We were actually speaking I think yesterday, or a few days ago, about how important it is for you to apply for scholarships, because it's so painful for me when I have a family that I'm working with and I keep telling them apply. And they don't take it seriously because they're banking on God will do it, which God will do all things. I believe that as a believer. But at the same time, there's a level of effort that you have to bring to the table. And so it's painful for me where I have a family that I'm working with, and it's at the end of the process, after the student has tried so hard, and we find out that they didn't get enough scholarships. Now we're running helter-skelter trying to figure out what to do next. So definitely would say, now is the time. There's scholarships that's available for students as early as elementary school, if you look out for them. So if you want to know more information about that, feel free to reach out to me. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Mohamed. There's no more questions.
Hello, everyone. Let me see whether I can bring up my presentation. And okay. Okay, as you guys can see, my name is Mohamed Ba, and I'm here in the Maryland area. I've been doing college funding plans for families since 2011. So I have 11, 12 years I've been doing it. And so let me, before any further ado, let me just proceed. Okay. Going back to what Ayo said earlier, for compliance, as a compliance standpoint, everything we talk about today is for educational purposes only. So it shouldn't be taken as a personal financial advice. If you're interested in how to go about planning financially for college, we can schedule a one-on-one meeting, whether virtually or in person if you're here locally. Okay, I'm licensed in multiple states, but like in Texas, I can't drive to Texas to meet with you in person. So we can do that virtually, okay? But if you're in Maryland, DC, Maryland area, Virginia, we can do that, okay? In person. Because sometimes people like that physical meeting as opposed to virtually. All right. So I'm available for that. Well, normally what we do our presentation, our goal is to provide you practical information. And because a lot of time people are a lot more, oh man, there's a lot of fears about college planning or college funding. Where can I start? So, and we help people out in starting it early. So the earlier you start something, the better it is. So you don't want to wait till your kid is already in the senior year in high school. You want to start planning college funding. That would be too late. I work with parents that they have their kids in pre-kindergarten, pre-K. I got people that their kids are like probably a couple of months old. They want to start it early. So the earlier you start planning for college, the better it is, funding wise. Okay. And like I said, we also encourage you to begin sooner, as opposed to waiting until the kid is in 11th grade oh, I need to start figuring out how to pay for my kids for college, unless you hit the lottery. And we all know what college costs today. It costs a whole lot of money. You know, sometimes maybe your to go to college and out, it may be probably the price of your home, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. Sometimes if you go to the to the most expensive schools. Okay. So a lot of times too, when you're planning for college, funding wise, you got to look at, okay, how many kids do I have? Okay. How far away are my kids to going to college, whether they're like already in high school or they're in middle school or in elementary school, you know? So you want to plan that in a lot early, you know, so be able to plan, because a lot of times some people start family late, probably in the mid-30s or even early 40s. So, and as your kids are ready to go to college, you're planning to retire. You know, so those are the kind of things you really want to be able to sit down with a professional to plan it better, you know, because probably money that was supposed to go towards your retirement is going towards college funding for your kids. Okay, so if you don't plan it properly, sometimes it's both people lose. The kids will lose, and probably the parents also will lose. They won't have enough money to retire on. Okay. And we all see some of us here, college graduates, we come out of college with a boatload of debt, you know. I'm working with a couple of people right now. Their student loan is almost $200,000. You know, I work with them in helping, showing them ways on how to pay those debts off a lot faster. Okay, so we want to avoid that. We want to make sure if we plan early, even if you decide to take some student loans, it won't be as much. So you'll be coming out of college with probably a little less debt as opposed to the six-figure student loan debt. Okay. Well, when it comes to planning for college, we normally use past income, which is normally whatever you have saved up for college. Okay. And we also, or you using whatever it is you're making today, your current income, as a way of cash flow to help them pay for college, or you wanted to go with your future income, which is student loans, so you can be able to pay that off in the future with your future income. Okay, so those are the kind of things we want to be able to manage. Okay, how strong am I to help my kid to go to college? You know, and most of those things end up coming up at the time when the kid is already your kids are already in high school. You know, and 9 out of 10 times, like I said, unless the kid is coming from a wealthy family, it's a lot late financially to plan for that kid to go to college, especially if the kid doesn't have any form of scholarship, you know? So you want to start early. I can't preach that enough. Well, there's different forms of accounts you can create. You can open up to save for your kids' college. The most common one is the 529 plan, because every state within the union have that. Okay, it has its advantages and it also has its disadvantages. Okay, it's all about knowing what it is, what kind of plan to have for your kids. And you can also have prepaid tuition. Some colleges, University of Maryland has a prepaid tuition plan where your kid may be in middle school right now. You reach out to them, you know, so you already want to pay. They will tell you, they'll prorate it and tell you exactly what it will cost. If you pay now, you know, your kids will be in a better setting than waiting until the kid is ready to go to college to pay. You know, you pay the sticker price at that time, you know. And you have the Coverdell Education Savings Plan also. It also has its advantages and disadvantages. It has, it's like income-based, and you have a cap on how much you can contribute towards in that kind of account. Okay, and basically the cap that you have in Coverdell savings plan, if you don't start early, that won't be enough, because the cap on that is $2,000. You cannot contribute more than $2,000 a year in a Coverdell plan. Okay, and knowing how much college is costing today, definitely $2,000 a year for a kid that is in already high school, it's not enough to pay for college. Okay, And people also have other investments. Okay, they put money in the stock market, they buy mutual funds, bonds, and the whole nine. Okay, those are other avenues you can use towards college. And your regular savings account also can work. And some people also they normally take money out of their equity on their home to help their kids to go to college, or they have an investment property or like a rental property that they use and say, you know what, I'm buying that home now. So by the time my kid is ready to go to college, I can take the equity out, or I can use the rental income to help my kids to go to college. Okay, that's another form. And this is another form too, cash value life insurance. Because a lot of times people only think life insurance only pays when someone dies. There's a whole lot more life insurance can do for you besides death. I would say the death is icing on the cake. You know, that's the last resort. There's a lot more you can do with life insurance while you're alive, and that can benefit you as opposed to just when I pass away. So sometimes that's why sometimes people there's different forms of life insurance as well. It's not every life insurance you can use to help fund your kids' college. You know, it has to be structured properly for that. Okay. And with that, it's like two different forms of it. They have the whole life, but it's not a traditional whole life. It's a participating whole life insurance plan. Okay. And also index universal life insurance is another form you can use for college, not a term life insurance, not a traditional whole life insurance, or not a fixed UL. So it's all about talking to the right person to be able to help you better to see how to figure it out. Okay. All of these different plans have advantages and disadvantages. Okay. So it's all about talking to someone that knows exactly what they're talking about to be able to tell you exactly which plan will suit you better. Okay. Well, we all Aya just touched on the FAFSA. Okay, a lot of parents tend to complete that when they know they need help, and like you say, you don't want to leave money on the table. You know, sometimes the financial aid that you have is not capped on the income that you make. You know, it's all about knowing how to arrange your assets to be able to qualify for financial aid. You may be there making $1 million. Your next door neighbor making the same amount of money, and your kid will qualify for financial aid while your neighbor wouldn't, and they'll be wondering, well, how come my kid qualify for college and they have the same grades? It's all about where the vehicle they were using for the college savings that they have. Okay, some of them are reportable, some of them are not, and it's all legitimate. Okay, it's all about knowing what kind of investment vehicle to use. This is just giving you the explanation of what FAFSA is. The CSS profiles. Not every college doesn't use it. You have a handful of colleges now that use that financial aid profile to see how much you can get. Okay, most schools use the FAFSA because that's a federal program. Okay, and the expected family contributions, I believe probably some of the people on the guest, some of the guests right now already probably have kids that are already in college or kids that graduated from college, and they know what the EFC is. Okay, the EFC is what the parents are allowed to contribute towards college. Okay, so based on how much they make, and when they complete that FAFSA, they end up getting the EFC, say, well, this is how much financial aid you're gonna have. So let's say it costs about $20,000 for that kid to go to college. And when you complete the FAFSA, and the school say, well, we can only offer you $8,000 of financial aid, then your EFC have to be $12,000. That's what you will have to pay. And sometimes people don't have that. They end up taking loans to be able to afford that amount of money. Okay. And going to college also, you have to think about the total cost. You know, because sometimes people just think of the tuition. How about the other stuff, the room and board, you know, and books, you know, like if your kid is gonna be renting an apartment outside of campus, you know, all of those things, the personal expenses, you have to think about all of that. It's not just the sticker price going to University of Maryland or Howard or Bowie State or Harvard or Yale. You got to think about the total cost, okay? And then sometimes run up to close to 6 figures, depending on the area where your kid decide to choose to go to college. Okay, and you have to be mindful of when you're saving for college, what kind of savings tools you need to have. Okay, you have reportable assets and non-reportable assets. A 529 plan is reportable. So if you're applying to a college, you have to disclose the amount of money you already have in a 529 plan. Okay. And if you have an investment property also, if you have multiple homes, the only one that wouldn't count that you don't have to disclose is your primary residence. Any other property that you own, any other home, it has to be reported, okay, because it's considered an investment, okay? Mutual funds, if you're saving for your kids to go to college by investing in the stock market, then you have to disclose that amount that your kid has, okay? And when you report that, and what end up happening is the more money you show, the less financial aid your kid will qualify for, you know? So you have to know what kind of account I need to have for my kids so they can qualify for the most. You know, like I was saying, you don't want to leave money on the table, okay? Because a lot of times the general one, everybody just 529 plan, which is general, which is great, you know, but those are one of the disadvantages when you have a 529 plan, okay? CDs, bank account, because you have to disclose your bank account to the school, you know, to be able, for them to be able to know how much you have, to see how much help you're gonna get from the school, okay? And you also have the non-reportable assets, okay? The non-reportable assets are, trust accounts also is another one. Non-reportable assets that doesn't count against the financial aid is your retirement plan, your 401k, if you're a federal employee, your TSP, or 457, if you're a state employee, and also your primary residence doesn't count. Okay, you don't have to disclose that to the school, okay? And your pension plans. And also, remember what I mentioned to you guys earlier, cash value life insurance is non-reportable, okay? So if you, let's say you were saving for your kids to go to college, 2 of them, you have a set, like I have a set of twins, a boy and a girl, okay? And if I decide to save for college for one of them in a 529 plan, and the other I decide to do it in a cash value life insurance plan, and I say I save the same amount of money, and they apply to the same college, both of them, then the one that have a cash value life insurance plan that has money in the cash value is non-reportable. So that one child would have a lot more financial aid as opposed to the other one that has a 529 plan, because the 529 plan has to be disclosed to the school. They can see the amount of money you have in there. Okay, so you just want to be able to know what vehicle to use and to save. Okay, this also just gives you the advantages of a 529 plan and some of the disadvantages that it also has. Okay, and it's a tax-free. Some of the other vehicles you use for college savings plan, both of them is after tax contribution that you use. Okay, and both of them grow in a tax deferred growth aspect of it. Then one of, like, if you have the other one, the other college funding plans is you can transfer ownership and it has no tax implications. Whereas if you do that with a 529 plan, you cannot do that with a 529 plan without any tax implications. Okay, and contribution limits. The 529 plan has a cap on how much you can contribute. The other one doesn't, so you can do as much as you want to. Okay, and also it doesn't have a withdrawal penalty. One of them, the 529 plan, is disadvantages. There's a penalty if you decide to withdraw the money out of it. Okay, And the other one also, let's say your kid decide to go to college in another country as opposed to the United States. The other one, you can use that money. Whereas in the 529, you cannot, no knock on the 529. It's just, I just want to be able to give you guys a different, because a lot of time people just contribute, they don't know the characteristics of each plan that they have, the benefits and the non-benefit. So this gives you a little, so you're like, okay, if I was thinking about getting a 529 plan now, there's other plans out there that I can do. Let me figure out exactly to see which one will serve me better, as opposed to just doing it because that's what everybody else does. Okay. And market risk. Okay. And the 529 plan is invested in the stock market, basically. So it goes up with the market and goes down with the market. So that's an advantage. It's a double-edged sword. You can gain and also you can lose. Whereas the other one, you can gain, but you never lose anything. It's because it's not tied to the stock market. Okay. And financial aid invisible. Okay. With the 529 plan, you have to disclose it, like I mentioned earlier. Whereas with the other aspect of college funding plans, you don't have to disclose that money. Okay, you don't have to. So the less they see, the better it is, the more money you're gonna earn for your kids to go to college as a financial aid. Okay, and both of them, a parent can own both of them. Okay, which is great. And also, let's say while you're saving for your kid, if it's a 529 plan, what the amount of, let's say you've been saving up for college funding plan for about 2 or 3 years for your kid, all of a sudden the parents end up passing away, right? The parent will only get what's in that plan. Whereas the other aspect of it, if it's the other plan that you decide to do, it comes with also a death benefit. Okay, so as opposed to just the money that is grown in the plan, it also comes with a bonus of a death benefit if the parent happened to pass away prior to the kids even graduating high school for them to pay for college. So that's one of the other different characteristics of the different forms of saving for college. Okay, what happened? Stuff froze. Yeah, bear with me here for a second. Our presentation just froze on me. Oh, boy. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my presentation just froze on me. It doesn't seem to go to the next page. Hitting the escape button and nothing is happening.
I suggest you stop. I want to stop sharing and then
Okay.
start again. Just like start the slide again.
Okay. Okay. All right, let me go back and start sharing. Okay. All right. Okay, simple is okay. It is not showing it. What's going on? Oh no. Sorry about that, guys. This is what I use. Hmm. It's not letting me do anything. Everything is.
I can see a slide.
Yeah, but when I'm trying to hit next, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's going. Yeah.
Okay, good.
now.
All right. Sorry about that. All right. So managing your asset for FAFSA, okay? And you want to be able to know, because a lot of times, like people parents tend to have a lot of money sitting in their checking account or savings account. If you start planning early, start talking to a professional, whether it's a prep, someone that helps your kids with SAT, like Adeolu or IO. You want to be able to make sure even your funds that you're going to be using for college are structured in the right portfolios. Okay. Because when you're completing your FAFSA, if the money is sitting in a savings account or checking account or in a 529 has to be disclosed. So what I always try to tell parents is, going back to Ayo's advice, start early before your junior year. Start putting things in place. So at least it gives you a lot more advantage as opposed to waiting until like I got someone that reached out to me this week. Her daughter is graduating next month from high school. They want to start college planning now. I said, there's nothing I could do at this juncture. You have to, I would say I would just reach out to the school and see what other funding help you're going to get directly from the school, because your kid's already been accepted in the school, so now you got to figure out how to go about it. Okay. So you always want to start early, way ahead of time, in rearranging your monies and make sure it is in the right places, as opposed to having it sitting in a CD or checking account or savings account, because those has to be reported. Okay. And I'm not telling you to do anything that is not legal. Okay. I'm licensed, so I don't want my license yanked. Okay. So it's just about having the right advice from the professionals. Okay. So that's all I'm trying to share with people, because a lot of times people don't know where to put their money when it comes to college savings. All right. And these are the options we offer, college funding options. We college planning report. We also create, when you're applying to colleges, based on the report we give you a lot more advantage on how to go about it, where to ask for funds, and what are the do's and don'ts in asking for funds. Okay. And the FAFSA Assist, we already have IO that can help out in that situation. And also with the college search query, we help out with that as well. And the scholarship also, we also can help you out with that. Okay. And basically, I would say the next steps would be, this is my information right here. It has my phone number and your website where you can go and get information. If you want to meet with me one-on-one, we can schedule a one-on-one. This is just a general presentation, and we can talk about more detailed stuff about what it is that how best to help you based on your own situation, because everybody's situation is different. Okay. Any questions so far that came out for me?
Yes, thank you so much, Mohamed. Your presentation was very insightful. There are two questions currently, so I welcome everyone else to send in questions as well.
The first one say, do homes under real estate business count? Yes, they do, because those are considered investments. Okay. And I will require to disclose real estate that is tied to registered business and not tied to a person. If there's a basically, if it's something that is, I would say, like a blind trust, for lack of a better term, yes, you can get away with that, because the things that are tied to your name is what you have to report. So in that second question, yes, you'll be protected in that scenario. Okay. I will require to this. Okay, that's the same question. Any other questions?
Okay, so there's
Yeah.
one more, there's a question in the chat.
Yeah, those are not tied to you as the individual. That's a trust, and that's what I always advise people to do. Get trust as opposed to wills. It helps you protect you. I'm a general financial strategist. I help people with retirement planning and a whole nine. So I tell people, have a trust. Don't rely on wills. Wills can be contested. So blind trust will be great for basically not just college funding. Okay, everything else. All right, because that's something that you can, that you be 6 feet under and still control what goes on out here, as opposed to just having wills or just going it by, oh, well, God will help me. I know I trust my family. They will do this. If I'm no longer here, have it protected before anything happens. I can't advise that enough. You know, yeah, blind trust will help in that situation.
All right, we'll have 12 more questions. Hey, Ayo, what do you think? We good to wrap this?
I think there's one more question. I don't know if it kind of already got answered in.
Which one?
Can my child in 7th and 9th grade write the ACT and SAT? Is that an old one that we are?
Yes, I typed an answer. I typed an answer to that.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, that's fine.
So yes, I wouldn't advise the 7th and 9th grader to attempt these exams. For one, I know you'll need to be proficient in Algebra 1 and 2 for you to attempt the SAT exam successfully. And these are just not concepts that 7th and 9th graders would have been taught. With respect to scholarships, I would say with professional help, you might want to start, researching these things. I know for one that early planning matters, but I'm not sure how soon you will be able to apply. Ayo, what do you think in terms of scholarship?
Yeah, so there's scholarships out there for students who are in elementary, middle, high school. You just have to look at the requirements to see if your child is eligible for those opportunities. One other thing I missed mentioning too is the fact that a lot of the external scholarships, other than maybe like the Nike, the Burger King, the Gates, the Questbridge, those big dollar ones that provide full rides or, a significant amount of money to a student. Based on my experience, most of the money that a student will get as far as scholarships comes directly from the university. So when you're building or having your students apply to or build their list or apply to universities, you want to look and see what are the merit scholarship opportunities that are that the university offers at admissions, and then also look and see if your child is on track to be considered for those opportunities. The other thing I want to also mention that some universities do not provide scholarships. So they provide grants based on income. So kind of going back to Mr. Mohamed's presentation and making sure that you are putting your money where it needs to be early on, so they're not penalizing you, so you're not eligible for those funds. So like schools like I want to say like the Ivies tend to not provide scholarships because everyone is smart. They now go to what does your income look like? What is the FAFSA telling us you need to be able to afford to come to our school? What can we give you? If you end up being a student that they call a student that's full need or has maximum need, going to some of these highly competitive schools with great financial aid packages or programs, you might not have to pay little to anything to those schools, depending on what you look like on paper. So definitely would say if you're just looking for a list of schools like that, we could definitely help you. If you're looking for how to start working to package yourself so that they're not looking at those funds, definitely reach out to Mr. Mohamed.
Definitely, because you want to find out early than later. Like, oh, I wish I knew this a year ago or 2 years ago, you know, and I would have been able to restructure myself better, you know, so.
Okay. Any more questions? All right, so I'll email the recording as well as helpful resources. I just want to appreciate everyone who has taken the time to attend. I also want to thank Aya. Your presentation was very insightful, and also Mr. Mohamed, you're the best. Thank you.
I apologize for that technical, because you know how it is sometimes with
It
glitches.
happens. It
Yeah.
happens. I struggle with my slides as well. Aya is the slide.
It just
Aya is the
froze. I don't know what
pro.
was
So
it.
yeah, it happens. But you guys are the best. I will I will seek. I have 2 daughters. So I'll seek your I'll seek your professional guidance. Certainly, because I learned so many things myself. Thank you so much. I
Oh, same
appreciate
here.
it.
Me too. I learned from both of you guys, and I was
Yes.
screenshotting some of your slides just so I can go back and review.
Sure. I'll do an email
Yeah, so
as well. So thank you,
definitely.
everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
You do this. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good one. Thanks everyone for attending.